Oh, yes. What is going on, everybody? Episode, I think we're on 30 now of Clan Brandalorian, but we're running a live today because everything that went on with the Acolyte last night completely wrapped up season one. And I had to bring in no other than Andy from the Galactic Core podcast to talk about this because this is one of my favorite people to talk with about Star Wars, especially with Easter eggs. I feel like every time we have a chat, I learn something new from you. And I was just telling my wife earlier, I was like, man, I hope with, a guest appearance of the quote unquote elephant in the room, I feel like you know a little bit more about this person. So maybe I can learn a little bit more. But going into that, how are you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, brother. As always, thank you so much for inviting me on. Absolute pleasure, as always. Repping the brand new Clan Brandalorian merch. Get yourselves out there. Get yourself some t-shirts. Get yourself supporting Brandon and his show. It's a beautiful t-shirt. I've got the beautiful yellow one here. As you can see, he's wearing the red. He's been repping all over his channel the last few days. People getting their merch arriving. Get yourself out there and get one. It's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. But I mean, yeah, I was like, man, it's time to drop some merch. I mean, at least a shirt or something that people can get. And they were a little bit on the expensive side, but I tried to dumb down some of the prices that way is a little more affordable because sometimes I can't even get myself to spend $20 on a t-shirt. But I mean, it's all different.
Yeah, look at all the stuff behind him, and then he's saying you won't spend $20 on a t-shirt.
I know. I'd rather get two new Funko Pops than buy a brand new t-shirt for myself. But I also like the Death Row Records hat to make the yellow pop a little bit too.
Yeah, I thought I'd match it up.
But yeah, guys, I'm gonna relaunch these as well. These are kind of the limited edition because I got the this is actually a sunflower because I'm from Kansas. That's our state flower, and that's kind of what we're known for. And then of course we got the Mandalorian visor in there too. So it kind of calls back to where I'm from and the significance of the channel that you guys are helping me create. So shout out to all you guys for making this happen. But as always, what's up?
My wife was saying like you could just get some little arms coming out and it could be like a Sarlacc behind Fett.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that actually is a good look. I might have to make a part 2 and name it Andy. Andy's idea. But yeah, man, let's go ahead and run this intro. And man, we got a lot to talk about today.
Oh yeah,
man.
Starting from the show.
Still love that video, man.
Man, I wanted to make it kind of like a kind of like the little Brady Bunch intro that they had, just kind of give it some funny effects and the little cross scenes with some text in there. Yeah, I had to do it. I'm a funny person, so I had to keep it funny. Didn't want it to be a but I do love the sexy boba laying down on the ground. But man, all right. We haven't talked at all since the episode aired. I watched it last night when it premiered, and I know you had work, and once you got home, you went ahead and watched it just recently, right? Just within the last couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's the timing's obviously different because you guys get it at like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening on a Tuesday, which means that it drops around about 3 a.m. on a Wednesday morning for us. So I'm obviously asleep when it goes in. I was at work at 8 o'clock this morning, so I had to stay off social media as I have to every Wednesday when it comes out until I get home, and then I can sit down and watch it, and then take it from there. So yeah, I got to watch it a couple of hours ago, so it's all pretty fresh for me. You've had time to sit and reflect. Time still going in a little bit raw, as I do all the time. That's why my wife is pregnant.
Yes,
but yeah, all good. It was definitely been an up and down series for sure. But yeah, I was so excited to get to watch the finale and see how the story tied together today.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Man, that's we are one and the same. We're gonna within the next couple months we're gonna be having a podcast or a live stream. Everyone beware of that. We're gonna have, it's not gonna be just Andy and Brandon. It's gonna be 2 more guest appearances. So definitely gonna get that rolling. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's been weird with the Acolyte. I've been enjoying it. Kind of overall before we get into the episode, I think the first couple episodes, I was like, man, this is new. So I'm very invested. We get to see Chimere, the stranger, at the end of an episode, basically talking about how to kill the dream for the Jedi. And that was really, really cool. Like I have goosebumps thinking about that scene all over again. But it's the way the first couple episodes draw you in as a fan. It's like, okay, let's go. And then of course we get episode 3, a very controversial episode. And then to match in with episode 7, it's a different taste for Star Wars, and especially episode 4 and 5, we're like, oh shit, this is what we've been waiting for. Like everyone who was able to go to Celebration in Europe, like very, very lucky of you guys to be able to host that and get probably one of the better celebrations that I've seen. Cause I'm a YouTube watcher. I watch the live streams. Just pop it on one of the TVs in the house and just let it ride, and I'll check in on it. But I mean, even the intro, like the promo trailer for the Acolyte, it's like, oh my God, we're about to see what's going on with the Sith, all of these different colored lightsabers igniting, and we finally get to see that. So that is really cool. I do give the entire season a 7 out of 10. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad, but it was good. It was pretty good. But that's probably my biggest gripe is just the twins, what they mean, what they're supposed to be doing. I think Chimere is definitely the light of the show. I mean, hence that he's on the dark side, but he is basically the face of the show. We have whether that's a really cool choreographer and stuntman that can also play and took 4 months to knock down these roles, right?
Yeah.
And also, I mean, he's a heartthrob. Everyone loves him. So, man, it's kind of like a new Shin Hati, as I like to call him. I think he's just taking, the social media by storm with his appearance. But man, I liked it. I thought it was good. What do you think?
Nothing is more divisive than a new Star Wars show or film, is there? In anything I've come across in life. Maybe it's because this is the fandom I'm closest to, but I've yet to see another TV show or film fandom or anything like that brings out as much joy and anger as it does for Star Wars fans. And this show, damn, has brought it out all over the board, isn't it? So I don't want to focus too much on the negative because one, we don't really we're going to speak about what's maybe not great about it, but I don't want to be absolutely negative about it. And second, you're the CEO of Podcast Positivity, so I don't want to come down here dragging all this down. So, but yeah, just to get that stuff out the way. I mean, all the review bombing, people calling it woke, all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you're going on to an episode rating and giving it a 1 star out of 10 before it's even aired, then you're
Yeah.
part of a problem. Let me just get that out of the way, because again, this week, people going on, and I think it was like 2 hours before the show was even released, it had like over 100 1-star reviews. So if you're doing that, then you're part of a problem. You need to have a look at yourself and step to the side, get out of the way.
Yeah.
This has definitely had ups and downs for me, for sure. I think overall, I would probably place it around about a 6 out of 10. The first few episodes were good enough to get you in and get you wondering about the story. Then we do fall into a bit of a lull. I mean, Star Wars having flashback episodes, that's never happened before. Star Wars isn't really a flashback type thing. Some people say The Last Jedi had a few flashbacks with Luke sort of flashing back to what happened between him and Ben Solo on that fateful night. But even then, I don't see that as a flashback. That's just him retelling a story of what happened that night. So flashbacks are a new thing for Star Wars. Did it work? To waste 2 out of 8 episodes on it, I think was a bit too much. I don't think to have 2 whole episodes, especially when this series has got short episodes as well, to have a quarter of your series for the flashbacks from 2 different points of view. So halfway through episode 4, episode 5, and I even really enjoyed episode 6, to go straight from that amazing battle and choreography and lightning fights that we had in episode 5 to then what was a philosophical episode. The chat between Kamir and Osha. Wasn't too invested in the chat between Sol and May, perhaps, but you wanted Sol to sort of, they teased it for so long. They dragged that out, him teasing what he'd done to it as well, to be fair. And obviously, it's in episode 7, but yeah. And then episode 8, this one was both good and bad for me at the same point. So it had some really good points. Again, the lightsaber battles in this series have been tremendous for me. Some of the acting, I think, has been amazing. Again, this show is just so up and down for me. Some of the people have been amazing. Some of the acting and writing has not been great. And it's literally just been hot and cold the whole way through for me. I'm really in the middle of some bits I absolutely loved, some bits were okay, and some bits I'm like, if I never saw that again, I wouldn't really be that mad. So
yeah, no, I agree with all that, man. I feel like that's the only thing that can take from my experience with it is just how many questions you have. And of course, every new series of anything that you get, you want to know what's going on right away. That's the whole point of, TV series or any sort of series being released 1 episode per week. You got to wait. You got to build that anticipation. That's how you keep viewers engaged. That's a part I always understand. I'm like, I always call back to is I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. And I would say 5/8 of that show is just filler. And I've been through some things. So with Star Wars, it's just kind of like, okay, I can deal with it. But at the same time, like you said, episode 3 and 7, maybe those could have been 53-minute episode, just as one. They could have even spent episode 3 on the planet, the unknown planet. Maybe that's where we could have gone back and seen Chimera. Maybe we could have got even an earlier appearance of Plagueis. Maybe not so much a face reveal like we see. Spoiler warnings, of course, it's the next day. But man, like, I feel like there's a lot of good things, kind of like you said, in this last episode. But at the same time, I feel like the only thing that brought it down was just the importance of May and Osha. And we think they're twins. That's what we've been told this whole series. But then they're not twins. They're one. So I'm trying to figure out, what does that mean? And I know you are very inclined with, Star Wars lore. So what does that mean to you?
People that were taking it as like this is an Anakin type situation, I just throw that away as well, because it's not. It's completely different to that. It doesn't ruin the lore of Anakin being the chosen one created by the Force. This was one powerful person in particular manipulating the Force to, or even using the dark side, manipulating it to split a soul or a personality into 2 to create 2 people. The prevailing theory is that was it Anaisa, the mother, that because she said, they were going to take over the coven, and the fact that they're 2 personalities, and then when she starts in the flashback where we see her starting to turn into like the black smoke, the ethereal smoke. And we see May just starting to as well, is that she basically gets both of them and becomes one with them, and then becomes one person. So it's like two personalities then get molded together to become one, and it's all dark side magic and dark side art. So in terms of like lore, I guess it kind of plays in with the fact that the whole thing with Plagueis was learning to control midichlorians to create life, to prolong life. He in his novel, by the way, if no one's ever read the Darth Plagueis novel, it's not canon, but it is jam-packed full of Star Wars lore, and it's a great read anyway, so I'd always recommend it. But in that book, he even uses midichlorians to heal himself when he's been injured. On like the night, I mean, there's one bit in it where he gets ambushed by a bunch of bounty hunters and people who want to basically assassinate him, and he gets quite badly injured, and he doesn't fully recover from it, but he still uses his manipulations, midichlorians, to heal himself and to survive. And even on the fated night when Plagueis is technically killed by Palpatine, if you're taking that as canon or proper lore, basically Plagueis gets drunk, and then Palpatine attacks him with Force lightning in his sort of like weak and drunk state. And Plagueis sort of sits there and is using the midichlorians to almost try and heal himself from Force lightning damage as Palpatine's trying to kill him off. So the whole fact that to me that kind of ties in, and that's maybe why we got a cameo of him here as well. They're tying in that story of how he can manipulate the midichlorians to create life is sort of similar to this, in the fact that Mother Anissa was using the dark side to manipulate the Force into creating life. Completely different to Anakin, which is, if you believe the lore, is supposed to be a rebuttal from the Force itself to creating life with no father, with no intervention. The Force just manifested him into being, as within Shmi. Whereas this is different because it's a person that's manipulated the Force into creating life. It's a completely different sort of lore to what has happened with Anakin.
Yeah, dude. See that, and that was the first things I was thinking was when, there's the tie-ins with Mother Anastasia telling Indara that there isn't a father, and obviously wondering where this is coming from. But at the same time, I feel like when we mention that, it's like, oh, we're connecting to Shmi Skywalker. There's no father. Qui-Gon asked her, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like everyone kind of getting upset with that, saying that it makes Anakin less of a character. I mean, Anakin cannot be the only one ever to be created in this sort of way. And the only thing I could think about this is like, okay, this is giving us a head start to an idea of how Anakin, the chosen one, was created. Like, there's something else that goes on. Anakin, no offense, but Osha and May, whatever they are as one or together, or even the entire coven of the witches on Brendok, couldn't hold Anakin's nuts if they even tried.
No.
Anakin is Anakin. Basically, the entire reason why we love Star Wars is more than likely going to be because of Anakin/Vader. I mean, that's just what Star Wars is about.
Yeah.
But it's just, I just look at this kind of as a callback. But the whole Plagueis thing, dude, like, I remember I looked right at my brother and we dapped up, hand shook right away, because we're like, oh shit, it's him. Like, that's something we've always talked about. And the Acolyte was supposed to be something from the viewpoint of the Sith, and maybe this is where that viewpoint starts. Maybe this is what Leslie was talking about. Maybe season 1 was kind of the precursor going into that viewpoint of the Sith, but we don't know yet because we've only had one season. And I don't know about you, but do you think there's going to be a season 2?
I'd certainly hope so. If that's just a one-off season, then it doesn't really do much for anything in terms of progressing or expanding necessarily on the Star Wars story. It's a very, if you take it as a one-off thing, it's a very isolated story about 4 or 5 Jedi and a couple of twins and somebody that as of yet hasn't sort of been introduced into the Star Wars Sith lore in terms of Khmer. So to me, I would definitely like to see a season 2, simply because they need to expand the story a bit more to make it fit into the wider sort of scope of things. Not everything has to be connected to the Skywalker saga or everything like that, but this is setting up the story to come for it. It's already showing the corruption of the Jedi, the fact that they're playing more into politics than they are into doing their actual job as Jedi or listening to the Force. It's setting all that in motion. But yeah, the whole Plagueis cameo, this is both good and yet I was, because when he appeared on screen, I literally just yelled Plagueis. My wife just looked at me like, what? And I was just like, that's fucking Darth Plagueis, man. And I had to show her a picture because she's not seen a picture of him before.
Right.
And she's like, all right, cool. I mean, the issue again here, it's sort of like, okay, the thing with Plagueis is that he only really, apart from his name being dropped, obviously, as we all know, in the best film in the world, Revenge of the Sith, Plagueis doesn't exist in Star Wars canon outside of that. So everything we know about it comes from lore. So people saying that this is too early in the timeline for him, because in Legends, he was born somewhere between 170 and 120 BBY. So if this is set, I think this is 132 BBY, this series. So it's smack bang in sort of the middle of that range of when he should be born. And he does look a bit older and a bit worse for wear, I think, in that one little cameo he got. So in terms of the timeline, again, but it sets up the story for the fact that if he can manipulate midichlorians to extend his own life, then there's no reason why he couldn't be around at this stage.
Exactly.
So it's interesting to see. In terms of the fact that we were told, yep, another Sith Lord will be appearing in this final episode, to have a 5-second cameo was amazing, but at the same time, you kind of sold it more than it was. I did expect a bit more. I was expecting it to be Tenebrous, to be fair, which was Plagueis' master in the novel. But at the same point, you kind of sold us short by going, yep, there's definitely going to be another Sith Lord appearing in this episode, and then giving us a 5-second cameo. It's a bit like with Rogue One when they said, technically a Jedi does appear in Rogue One, but it turned out to be Vader. So it's kind of like that switch and bait kind of situation with telling us. And then telling us as well, if I can just sort of skip into it, that Yoda was never going to appear in this series. And then the very last thing we get is obviously him from the back. In there, so you can't leave it on that situation and then not have a season 2. Just to get back to the crux of what you're saying, because then it's kind of like it does delve back into that whole thing of what story is Venestra telling him about what's happened with all this. There's because technically everyone that did see a Sith is dead or has had their mind wiped, and so therefore even though Venestra, as we saw, tapped in to being able to sense it was Quimir when she landed on Brendok.
That was so cool.
She still technically hasn't seen a Sith. So therefore, she can't really go to Yoda and go, there was a Sith. So what stories is she going to tell Yoda? Some lies, just like she told the Senate in that meeting. So there has to be a season 2 to continue this story, and you can't just leave it at that moment and then not have any more, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because it's like, man, what the hell did she tell him? Because and also too, like we can go to the end real quick, but Yoda's cameo, that is huge. That is something we all speculated could possibly happen, but it's maybe that's a touchy subject. Maybe we'll kind of just leave him out. But no, I mean, they showed him, and I think that's good risk taking as a director and for Disney Star Wars. I mean, what better than to give us some characters that we know about, showing them in a different time era. But man, that's just is she obviously staged everything to be Soul's fault, but at the same time, it's like, is she gonna tell Yoda? I feel like there's 3 things. Either she's gonna tell Yoda the truth, and we're really gonna see how twisted the Jedi are. This, I feel like this gives so much more power to Anakin's quote. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. That, just adding more weight to that, dialogue itself. But I mean, everyone looks at the Jedi as these knights in shining armor, it's not all, rainbows and daisies on that side. They're just as corrupt in many ways, and when you tell some people, they take kids at a very young age. And of course, they, sometimes get parental confirmation to take their children, and we've seen just in the Acolyte this month, that Soul, just kind of barged in and wanted to take him, which is even another weird thing, because it's it just seems like he wanted that feeling of having his own Padawan. And I love the snickering between him and Indara about that. But just weird. Just a weird thing.
It definitely is, because technically the law, everyone always does this whole thing of like the Jedi take Force sensitive kids no matter what. But technically the law on this says that the Jedi always ask permission to take your young child away. If you say no, then they're not allowed to do it. They're
Right.
allowed to seek out and test Force sensitive children to see if they are strong in the Force or not, but they don't have the right to just take them and kidnap them. Whereas this show does kind of then throw that a little bit out there, and the fact that Sol was very forceful with Indara, and Indara was doing everything by the book, was going to consult the council. We got the old line of they're too old, because they were only like a year or two younger than Episode 1 Anakin, as well. So that's always been their sort of rule. If you can't bring them, because they know you take a kid away from his family at the age of 8, 9, 10, something like that, they're going to be attached to their family already, and it's going to basically cause them issues sort of moving forward. So yeah, the fact that Sol pushed so hard to then take at least Osha, if not both of them, away, goes against sort of the base of what technically the Jedi were doing, which was always ask permission to do it. And if you say no, then you don't get a choice in it. They just then keep an eye on them after that to make sure they don't start using the Force for anything against what the Jedi like, which again does bring into question the Jedi's ability to manage their power correctly, because as we know, they're sort of losing it at this point. And when you're then being forceful enough to start saying we're taking children against the sort of the normal Jedi code, or if you use, or as Quamir said a couple of times, the Jedi don't like the way I use my power, so therefore I was cast out, or they want to kill me because of it. So it is a case of, and even the senator was saying, what the Jedi are doing isn't correct, isn't right. It's the way that they use their abilities and dictate to everyone. It's a cult masquerading as a religion, that if it's not their way, then it's no way, sort of thing. So what I do like is the fact that whilst we know that from obviously the original Star Wars films and in the prequel trilogy, that's what is going on with the Jedi, to start seeing it in focus 120 years before is a good thing to see. The only thing that I don't like about it is this story maybe focused too much on that. I'm hoping it does go with you said, and the fact that season 2 then does focus more on the Sith side of it, because we were promised that this was a story from the Sith point of view. You know me, I'm a Sith guy through and through. I'm not really on the Jedi side. I am a Sith guy.
Yeah, you got it tattooed on you.
I've got 2 different Sith tattoos, but I've got the Sith Empire with a red lightsaber on there. But yeah, so to not get more of this story from Quimer's point of view, the Sith point of view in general, was a bit disappointing, especially when you market it for that running up to it, and then just before it drops, you then start marketing it as like a murder mystery show, with various plots and devices going on. So to me, that was probably the biggest disappointment of the whole thing, is the fact that it's a bit like I don't remember if we talked about this off camera or so, but the Battlefront 2 story in the game, the fact that it was marketed on the whole run up as a finally having a game and a story from the Empire's point of view. And all the marketing was done. So you see Iden Versio is obviously a member of the Empire and doing her stuff there. And then like a quarter of the way through the story, she switches sides to the Rebellion and then the Resistance. And you spend 3/4 of this game doing what you've always done, which is be part of the Resistance or the Rebellion. So it's kind of felt like that as well. And the fact that like you're marketing it as being a Sith story, and that it's mostly about the corruption and how crap the Jedi were.
Right.
But it's not a bad thing that they show us that. I mean, there's one podcast, I'm not going to call them out, but after I watched the episode and I got myself back on Instagram scrolling through, they basically were calling out Lucasfilm and Disney, saying, how can you market a show like this that promotes being evil, and that's who you can naturally be, as a good thing? Like, to end the episode with like Quamir and Osha sort of looking out triumphantly across the ocean, and May sort of telling Osha, you should go with Quamir. This is who you were born to be, as if, having that darkness in her is who she was all along. And the fact that this show was calling them out, saying that how can you promote that and promote being evil as a good thing? And I'm like, I don't think that's what they were doing, really. I've never once thought about that as a point of view of what they're doing on this show. If you are setting it up to say a season 2 from their point of view, and you're setting it up to say, this is what the bad guys wanted, this is what they want to do, because this is how they want to use their power. Right. Amir wanted an acolyte, and he's ended up with one because he found someone who could kill a Jedi without having to use a weapon. That's
right. And like that's the whole point. And I think it all really comes down to the review bombing as well, because it's just like if you go into a movie thinking it's going to be shit, you're not going to like it, man. You're just going to find every little thing. You're going to be like, oh, did you see that door in the background? It was left open when it was supposed to be closed. Like, yeah, any little thing like that. And that's just kind of what irritates me about it, is because people aren't even giving it a chance. And is it up and down? Yes, it is. It's a new show, and it's in a timeline where nothing is explored yet, basically. Canon, other than novels, like going in from the High Republic, and then the Plagueis novel. I know that's not canon, so it's weird, and it's like, just let it happen. It's obviously going to be made regardless, and plus marketing. I think that was kind of one of the things, just like you said, where we were expecting the point of view from the Sith, but the story's not done yet. Maybe this was just kind of like I said before, the precursor. We get to see this murder mystery. It seems like everything is, oh, the poor Jedi. And then you find out they did some shady shit. And now you're like, oh, I like the Sith, and I'm one for all aspects. I love Jedi. I love Sith. I love bounty hunters, astromech droids, anything. I'm for it all. But it's just like, if you can't give it the light of day, then you're just setting yourself up for failure, and just don't watch it then. I mean,
yeah.
Disney wants all of our money. They're going to tell whatever story they want at the end of the day, so it's going to happen, but it's like, just relax, because I mean, you don't have to like everything. Could you imagine if we all liked everything?
It'd be boring, wouldn't it?
Everything would suck. Everything would suck. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I've always felt the same way, in the fact that people who call for certain things to be decanonized, or start signing petitions saying make this non-canon or rewrite the sequels, I've always said that none of us own Star Wars. We're not Lucasfilm. We're not the writers. We don't work for the company. We don't get to decide what the story is. If you want to do that, write a story and throw it into the EU. That, if you want to write how do you think the story would go, and it's your own alternate universe, you can do that. No one's stopping you. But I've always said I'm here for the ride. So it doesn't matter to me what the story ends up being. I've just got to sit back and take it all in. I can like some bits, I can hate some bits, I can love some bits, I can think some bits are mediocre. But at the same point, though, I don't get to decide what's canon, and I don't get to decide what's right or wrong about the story. I'm just here to watch the story and see how completed they can make it before I shuffle off this mortal coil.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, I don't get to decide what canon is. I'm not going to be signed. I don't sign any petitions along that kind of nonsense. I'm just here to just watch it unfold as it is, and take it is a good thing or a bad thing. Whatever the story ends up being, that's what the story is. We don't get to decide that at the end of the day. And anyone who thinks they're entitled to decide what the story is, get yourself to be a billionaire and buy Lucasfilm. Then you can do it yourself.
That's the thing. These people who get so upset about how the story is, it's like, man, can you write something? Let them. What if they gave you the opportunity to write it? What would it be? It would literally be nothing more than a fan film. And that's what everyone expects. And we can't have that, because fan films are made to give more characters that everyone loves more depth into their character, to see them again. Like the Darth Maul fan films, like after he died and before we even got Clone Wars, seeing him come back, like that was the gold of it all, seeing all of those, characters coming back to light. Like, it's like, I could just never imagine just wasting my time. Just being dumb. Like, I got better things to do, man.
Because I've maybe written my own little stories in the past, but what I do is I do it within the already canon. So I might write something that appears between episode 3 and 4, for example. I'm not writing my own alternate ending to what happened to Luke after episode 6. And stuff like that. And I'm not making him the Grand Master of the Jedi that starts a new order and everything's hunky-dory and he's the most powerful Jedi to ever have lived. I'm just like, I want to continue anything that I want to do is my own little headcanon. I've always done it within the confines of what's already canon, and I'm just filling in gaps where they've never touched and probably wouldn't ever touch, in terms of like, it's just a little story here and there. just to show that, like, Vader's a badass. He takes down a bunch of people on a planet somewhere. It's kind of like the comics do nowadays, and the fact that we're lucky enough to get all these Marvel Star Wars comics, and they just fill in all these gaps between all the different shows and films now. And that's basically what I used to do when I was a bit younger, when I had a bunch of free time, and I was, for some reason, slightly less nerdy than I am now. So, we don't get to decide any of this stuff. We're just here for the ride, man, and we're just here to take it all in and love it as much as we want to.
Yes, that's what we should be doing as fans, or talk with other fans. We have social media. It's our own poison, but I mean, if you can find some like-minded people, or even the opposite of what you think, it's how things come together. But like we said earlier, we don't have to like everything.
Yes,
and get a point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just unfortunate that obviously some people then will feed off the negative reviews and the negative comments. Like when I've posted during the reviewing of this series on my show, when I've posted any clips to social media, I've had much more engagement over the things that I've put out than I've had for any other show I've ever done in the history of my podcast. And that just goes to show that people want to jump in and contradict you or hate it just because they think it's fashionable, or they think they're being something more than they are by negatively commenting on it. Like when my social media clips start to have more comments than likes, that's when it's like, I'm stepping away from this for a while.
Yeah. That's I saw one of your TikToks that got that way, and then that one dumbass that was just like, I could tell by your headphones. It's like, bro, that's how I know you're dumb. It's because you're worried about what someone looks like rather than what they're saying.
Just in case anyone's wondering exactly what it is he's talking about these.
Yeah. Do you not like cats? Like, come on.
I know. Just because they're pink kitty headphones, am I not an e-girl? What's wrong with you all? Yeah, I go back and forth between different headphones, so I just happen to be wearing those on that episode, and the guy's like, "You're wearing those headphones, says it all." I'm like, okay.
It's like, all right, man, cool, whatever.
Yeah,
that's all I needed to know. But yeah, oh well, people will be that way. But let's get into some comments real quick and see what's going on. Patrick from Poptography, what's up? I think he left. Yep, he left this at 10:22 p.m. last night. He says, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I feel like there were a few editing tweaks with episode 3 and 7 to show them earlier. I think more fans could have enjoyed more. Yeah, I agree with that too. That's kind of what we were talking about. I feel like the choreography and the editing, the overall digital effects, I think they looked really good. I just feel like they kind of wanted to look different, if that makes sense. It didn't seem typical Star Wars-y. Like, you could tell some of these effects maybe have been some new things that some of these digital creating markets have been able to use more. Something was just a little off. So I agree, but I mean, it's a different show, and it also makes me think, hey, it's a different time in the timeline. So maybe things are different. Technology shifts, and some of the ships I thought, in my opinion, kind of looked like shit, but I mean, compared to, I'm used to the Slave One, Kenobi Starfighter, ships like that. So obviously we're spoiled in that aspect, but that's just what things looked like back then,
I mean, you look at the difference between the original trilogy, how the ships looked, how everything looked, to then the prequels. Everything was much shiny, everything was newer, everything looked fresher. And you can even use the excuse that after 20 years of oppression by the Empire, that's the way the galaxy would have looked in terms of technology 20, 25 years later. And then you skip back 100 odd years from the prequels, and even the Jedi Temple, the flashes we got looked cleaner, it looked neater. It looked as if it was fresher. So there's no reason why it wouldn't be like that. So
right,
I think that but you've got to give it a slightly different feel, because you've got to make it removed a bit. This is the first show or anything like that outside of the Skywalker saga officially. So you've got to make it feel, I think they had to go down that route, making it feel slightly different for that purpose. So it at times didn't feel Star Warsy, but at the same point, you're getting the Jedi Temple, you're getting the Jedi at the height of power before they fell. You're getting multiple Jedi on screen for the first time in God knows how long. So different robes, because we know it's High Republic era. Everything has to look a bit different. I think they did all right on that. The cinematography to me was beautiful. It's one thing you expect nowadays from Lucasfilm and modern day Star Wars, is that it's going to look beautiful. Everything from Rogue One to now, cinematography wise, has been astonishingly good. I don't think there's been a miss in any project that they've done that doesn't look good. It's just all down to the writing and the performance on screen.
Right. Yeah, it's as simple as that. I mean, what can you do, man? Malekith, what's up, dude? Love Malekith. Always on every live stream. Appreciate you, bro. Always pulling up. What's up to you, man? I woke up at 4:30 a.m. to see it. Sucks to live in Europe. Feel that, Andy?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Hopefully they will release Skeleton Crew a few hours earlier. Yeah, I don't know what they'll do. I bet they go back to the 2 a.m. release. I'm in America, of course, so I bet that'll be a 2 a.m. release. So it'll be normal time for you guys.
Well, they used to do it like that, didn't they? So it was just the fact that, like, with all the Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff, when Disney Plus first came around, it was like a 3 a.m. drop for the Americans. It was like an 8-9 a.m. drop for us over here. And then last year they changed that for some reason. Went, no, technically we're an American company, America first.
Yeah,
let's give them it the night before, and we get it in the middle of the night.
That's kind of what I thought too, because like the Kenobi series, when that premiered, it was supposed to come out at 2 a.m. our time. But they dropped it 3 hours early. And I remember I had just got done bartending and I came home and I saw everyone on Twitter saying, it's out, it's out, it's out. And it's like, oh shit. So I sped home. I didn't even shower. I was like, no, we're watching this. So
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Ahsoka series was cool because I felt like, we could sit down with the family and watch it all. Me, my wife, and my brother just watch it and get through it. And that's kind of what we did with the Acolyte. But other than that, Andor, Bad Batch, Mando, I always stay up till 2 a.m. to watch, or I'll take a nap, then wake up. But yeah. 5 out of 10 for me. Malekith says Chimere should have been the focus of the show. He was badass. I don't like Osha and May and their arcs. Yeah, just kind of like we said too. It's just kind of Osha and May. It's just like we don't know their significance 100% yet. It's like we have this idea of what they should become or what they are, but they're not separate. They're not twins, but they're one. And kind of like how we talked with Mother Anastasia, like it's just weird how it's just weird what they are. And I hope we get that answer too, because that's something that messes with me. But yeah, Chimere being the focus of the show, I think that's what we're gonna get, man. If I was to be, I always love doing my theories, but last night I was thinking, okay, what if Chimere finds Osha or May, takes them in. This is what Plagueis wants, maybe, because I think Plagueis had something to do with creating the twins. This is kind of like one of his first rough drafts of manipulating the Force and creating life through midichlorians. He was obsessed with it. Plagueis talks about it, or Palpatine talks about it. So many P names. But I think what happens is maybe we get Chimere's story. We jump further. Also, I bet Chimere gets redemption on Vernestra if we see that next season. Because, I mean, she's obviously not in the prequels, so she has to die at some point. I mean, that's not what it always means, but I bet. And I think we're going to see Chimere get replaced by Palpatine at some point. We'd have to jump maybe 50 years or so, 40, 50 years. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean, something has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Osha and May, they were a sticking point for me. I mean, Amanda Stenberg, who played Osha and May, I don't think she gave maybe the best acting performance overall. In this episode, I was reflecting a bit on as it was happening, how she didn't seem to give off much acting emotion to me, in terms of like her facial expressions seemed to be very much the same no matter what was going on.
Right.
We'll talk about it in a bit. Obviously, the bleeding of the lightsaber crystal. Even then, her facial expressions seemed to be the exact same. She didn't seem to be enacting any rage, any emotion, any hate, any upsetness, if I can say that correctly. So to me, I've enjoyed most of the acting in the show. I think everyone, from what they've been given, I think the writing suffers a bit in places, but I think the acting for the most part, especially Manny Jacinto playing Chimere, has been outstanding. But yeah, Amanda Stenberg, I don't think she maybe gave her best performance in this series for me personally. So I can understand where people come from when they say I don't really like Osha and May, because I don't know how you feel about this, Brandon, because I would be interested to hear your point on this. About there seems to be an awful lot of flip flopping from the two of them in terms of whose side they're on, going back and forth, what they're actually standing for, who they want to win. Like May turning in episode 4, but when she found out Osha was alive, seemed incredibly quick. When she would have been with Quimir for a large chunk of the last 16 years.
Right.
Then in that last episode, Osha sort of turning very quickly to kill Sol, and then May being like, go join the dark side. It's your destiny sort of thing. And her just accepting it and going. When she told Quimir before, she's like, I will absolutely not join you. I'm not my sister. I won't do that. And then to let her sister be free and to let her go off with the Jedi, she's like, cool, let's just wipe your memory and I'll sod off and just leave you to it. The whole point was you two wanted to be together, didn't you? Because you're one. Right. And both of you just flip-flopping back and forth so much in this series that it confused me about what their characters are. So I do hope, like you said, their story gets rounded off in a season 2. I don't want the whole season to concentrate on them as it has done as much in this series. I want Quimir and Plagueis and everything else that goes with that. But yeah, so I can definitely understand where people come from about Osha and May in this series. They've not been my highlight, and I think we've focused too heavily on their story. But at the same point, you couldn't have told the story without them because they're obviously a focal point of it. So and leading to the situation with Quimir is you needed their story to get there. So
and see. My take on it is I feel like what they're doing is they're finally going to show us in live action how Anakin was created. That's always been a huge question, just like Maul coming back, like where's his character? We finally get him back. Palpatine, I don't think anyone was expecting him to come back in the sequel trilogy, but he did. And I mean, it's a lot of those things you don't expect, but that's what I'm expecting, is that they're going to touch base and show maybe Osha and May are the first try at Plagueis creating life. And we see that. And I feel like it's maybe he manipulates the dark magic from the witches. And it's kind of like what we see with Thrawn reaching out to the Night Sisters and Ahsoka, to create something, because he's like, I have, and this is what I think too, is he has all of these stormtroopers left, from Rebels, and okay, let's use the sisters' magic and create this undead army, pretty much. And it's not anything like Project like Blackwing, but it's just more of it's strength in numbers. And I feel like when you use your talents with someone else's talents, magic wise, or the Force, this is what happens. You can create like a super person. But they all do it, just like Moff Gideon making his clones.
Yeah.
And, it's just, it's a riddle in Star Wars. We see it all the time. But yeah, Osha and May is just something that I just still can't wrap my head around, because it's like, other than the Force dyad or whatever they are, or the one, it's what are they? Like, I that's my only downside to the Acolyte, and especially with some different writing, it just didn't seem like they wanted to really hit this point of view in the story full force. It's just kind of like, oh, here's this, and this will answer the question. It's not just one thing. It has to be like multiple. But other than that, I agree with what you're thinking, because that's the only thing that throws me off is the twins.
Do you know much from the Plagueis novel about how it says Anakin was created?
No, that I don't.
So what Plagueis and Palpatine used to do was sit and have these really long sort of meditating type sessions within the dark side of the Force, where they essentially try to use the meditation techniques to overwhelm the natural balance of the Force within the galaxy and tip it towards the dark side. So they spent many hours doing this, and there was one night when they essentially succeeded in finally tipping the scales of the balance of the Force in the galaxy over to the dark side. So the dark side is now slightly the most overwhelming force compared to the natural goodness of the cosmic force in the galaxy. And so when this happened, they felt a ripple through the Force, where the Force essentially retaliated by creating the Chosen One to bring down the bad guys essentially and bring balance back to the Force. It's all about bringing balance. The Force has to act in balance essentially. So the fact that it had been artificially manipulated to be tipped over towards the dark side, the Force then itself retaliated and sent a ripple through the Force of space-time, which Plagueis and Palpatine felt and created Anakin. And they don't find out that that's the result of that until they see Anakin essentially in episode 1.
Shit. Okay, so I mean, I know that there was like when they tried to create, and I didn't know if it was through, meditation, kind of like you said, but with there being like, did it just happen to just be like, oh, boom, like Shmi Skywalker right here? Is that like where
It doesn't go into the depths of why they picked Shmi specifically or anything like that, but it was just the fact that the Force, it just explains that the Force retaliated to Plagueis and Palpatine, tipping the balance of the Force to the dark side by creating a being out of nothing using the midichlorians that would bring balance back to the Force. So yeah, it doesn't dive into why Shmi was chosen or anything like that. It was just the fact that that's what the Force chose to do, or who the Force chose to do it through. And maybe she had qualities that were being viewed in Anakin that would then stay with him throughout his entire life and help him sort of, become the person he did to then bring balance back to the Force. But yeah, it's always interesting that a lot of people are obviously still hound on this sort of theory that Plagueis or Palpatine were the ones that created Anakin. And obviously, as we said, Plagueis' novel isn't canon, but if we're still going with that and everything that's sort of hinted towards it, then this is still true to the fact that it was the Force who naturally created Anakin. It wasn't manipulated by any one individual, because that would take away the whole legacy of the Chosen One in a way, wouldn't it? So
right, yeah, that was just what happens because Plagueis and Palpatine just kept trying to basically give in to the dark side being the reigning like realm of the Force. So them in trying to manipulate that's what happens is it creates this person who ultimately destroys the Jedi and then ultimately destroys the Sith in one. So it's just, I mean, just even a talk like that, dude, it's like, how do people think that this ruins Anakin's story or his existence, his mere existence? It makes no sense to me. That is gold, that me, I don't read books. If anything, I'll watch a video trying to explain it, but I haven't got that in a video or, just myself reading it. So, I mean, little things like that. Obviously, if you know the background, you understand the reasoning more. So, I mean, maybe I just need to open a book other than Dark Disciple. That I've read that, like, I love that one, but
get the audiobook, mate. Just put it on in the background.
Yeah, I need to get with that. I need to get with that. Tack loves art. What's up? How you doing? I was all in this episode. Great, fantastic. Can't wait for the next saga. Yes, yeah, it was good. I'm ready for a second rendition. I want to see more. I want more. I want more.
Yeah.
Melkith, my live action ranking. Ahsoka. Yes, that's it. Just Ahsoka. No, nothing else. All right, what we got? Okay, Malekith right here going with his live action ranking. Here we go. Ahsoka, Mando Season 2, Mando Season 1, Book of Boba Fett, Mando Season 3, the Kenobi series, Andor, Acolyte. All right. I can get down with that.
Interesting.
Mine is very different, as you know, but I think they're all good. I think they're all good in their way. I do need to rewatch Andor again, especially before Season 2 comes out, because my boy director Krennic will be in there, if anyone didn't know that. So I'm very down for that. But yeah, good list, man. Tack again. I wish we get a live action Savage Opress. That would be cool. Maybe I don't know what they could touch down with during that Clone Wars saga. Maybe, I don't know.
It'd be a tough one to squeeze him into live action, unfortunately, wouldn't it? When his story's kind of been told and there's not much other room for him in any other project, unfortunately.
Yeah. See, I mean, I don't know if I've told you, but I used to hate Ahsoka. I hated Darth Maul having a brother. I didn't really like Darth Maul coming back. but this was in high school too. So once COVID hit, I was like, I'm watching Clone Wars, whether I like it or not. I love it now. I gave it a chance. See, guys, hate it and then give it a chance. Let it marinate. But
That's all of Star Wars in a nutshell, isn't it? Except the original trilogy. I mean, everyone hated the prequels when I was younger and growing up, and now everyone loves them. I'm sure the sequels will get some love in another 10, 15 years, and maybe the same for some of this. So yeah, it seems to be the cycle of life with Star Wars.
Yes, and like I was like, man, Anakin would have been granted rank of master. This is stupid. Why does he have an apprentice? This makes no sense. And Ahsoka is probably, I mean, whether this makes sense to you or not, top 15 character for me. You know, there's so many more characters I would put over and under Ahsoka, but like I love Ahsoka now. I mean, it's just it adds weight to Anakin and his downfall.
You're the same as everyone else, mate. Everyone hated Ahsoka for the exact same reasons. I'm like, how could Anakin have an apprentice? This makes no sense. Where was she in episode 3? There's no mention of her. And obviously, you've got to build that story and get her in there. And I'm not going to lie, the first probably 3 seasons of the Clone Wars, I really disliked her. Obviously, she was a young, bratty teenager and didn't really do much for the story. But, you know, her and Anakin learned from each other and she grew and she became, you know, at 16, 17, 18, incredibly wise young woman, to be fair. I was going to say Padawan or Jedi, but by then she's kind of left the Jedi. So, and we get to see this person in the Ahsoka series who's a lot wiser, a lot older, knows how to deal with things, but at the same time still holds that sort of fear of what she saw everyone around her go through in Order 66, which speaks true for a lot of the Jedi. But, you know, the fact that we got to see that in live action, it just speaks volumes about how that character is now perceived. Yes.
Love that too, because like, especially when we get the flashbacks or the Shadow Warrior episode in Ahsoka, like Chris Scavoli that does the Scavoli Tano show, shout out to him. He'll always post on his stories, and we've talked, like, especially the episode that I had him on, is that, you know, Ashley Eckstein is his Ahsoka. Like, as for me, like my Ahsoka, I mean, Ahsoka's Ahsoka, but, you know, like Hayden Christensen is my Anakin, as you know, Matt Lantner is his. So, I mean, it's just kind of like, that's cool, dude. Like, because you resonate towards the Clone Wars, and that's your aspect of Star Wars. That's really cool. But I got to finally see that in the Ahsoka series with Hayden saying, "Hey, Snips," you know, like that's straight out of the Clone Wars. So, I mean, that's really cool how they can. That's what you can get with live action to Clone Wars. But we might have a member joining the show. I don't know why he's down here. Wait. Everybody meet Lando. This is Lando Cat Hissian. All right, buddy. You go lay down. But yeah, I think it's just finally seeing that connection from what they had in the Clone Wars enter Between the World Between Worlds and live action gave me that insight. Like, okay, everything's fine. Tack here again. How many people are gonna cosplay the Stranger this Halloween? Man, Andy could have, but Hasbro is tweaking with his
screwing me over, man.
Man, what the hell, Hasbro?
Honestly.
And like, kind of like when we were talking, like I was flamed for you. I was like, dude, this is bullshit. A year? Like, how do you?
Yeah.
You got to at least give you some sort of redemption code or something to get like a free Rex helmet. I know you already got the Rex, but like something.
We get nothing from that. But yeah, anyone who's wondering what we're talking about, by the way, after episode 5 came out, that amazing episode, you know, with all the fighting and stuff like that, Hasbro Pulse drops the pre-order for the Stranger Helmet Black Series. Obviously, you can see a bunch of Black Series behind me, including, if I get my damn head out the way, we can see Rex and Clone Trooper behind me. They dropped it, straight after the episode for pre-order. I was like, damn, I'm straight on this. It said release date 15th of July 2024. I was like, sweet, that's like 2 weeks time. I'm getting this right now. Ordered it, all good, and then like I think it was the start of last week or the week before, I got an email from them going, there was a mistake on the website and the release date is actually 15th of July 2025. So it's not going to be for a year. And I straight up cancelled my order. I was like, I am not waiting a year to get that. I will, because they don't take payment until it's ready to ship anyway. So I was like, by then I've got a baby on the way. God knows if I'm going to have the actual money to do it. But I was like, if it dropped, when it gets dropped, I'm sure there'll be plenty around, so I won't have to be scrambling to get one. If I decide to get one, then I will do. But just the fact that out of pure anger, they went, "Oh, actually, sorry, it's going to be a year." I went, "Well, no, sorry, I'm cancelling my order." And it's not like Hasbro give enough of a crap about collectors, about collector souls and their wants that they're going to give me any sort of redemption code or anything for free for the trouble of it. So
Yeah, just something at least, or like other than sorry, this is an inconvenience. Well, no shit. It is an inconvenience because like you said, like what if the hype around that character drops by 2025? Like that's
yeah.
something you got to take in the hand too.
I think that's
So
what we
stupid.
talked about, wasn't it? Because we were just like, in a year's time, the show's going to be over. Is anyone going to care as much? Half the people
Yeah.
have forgotten that they've actually pre-ordered it because they've been waiting a year. So just the fact that Mando Season 3 finished a while ago, didn't it? And
Yeah.
in November, they're finally dropping the Moff Gideon helmet from Series 3. And I'm like, how long ago did Season 3 finish? Like,
Right.
So
And
it's just,
from
why
what
can't
we
they
know,
just
he's
do all
done.
this stuff sooner?
Yeah, just as soon as the episode airs, like that's something that's really good for marketing, that gets more people involved. Like drop it when it happens. And I wish Funko would do that as well. They had dropped the Master Soul, Yord, Basil, Chimere, like when he's in the shop, like as the scoundrel. And it's like, come on, man, like drop the stranger. That's one of the best things in all of Star Wars. But Tack loves art again. Did Shmi carry Anakin like the witch? Was she a coven member or a slave? What do you think, Andy?
I mean, she carried Anakin in her womb just like a normal pregnant woman would do, and she birthed him like normal. But she was a slave. She wasn't a coven member, as far as we've been told. Anyway, who knows what law they might change now? But yeah, in terms of she was just a slave. She was sold to, I think it was Gardulla the Hutt. Back before then, her and after Anakin was born, her and Anakin were then lost in a game of cards by Gardulla the Hutt to Jabba. And that's how they ended up on Tatooine. And then obviously, again, they were lost in a game of, I can't remember what it was, but they were lost in a game to Watto. So that's how they ended up sort of their route. But yeah, she was just a slave, unfortunately. She wasn't a coven member as far as we have been made aware at this point.
Yeah. I remember that was a huge thing under speculation. It was like, oh, Shmi is one of the hooded figures, for the witches. And it's like, oh God, like that just let that story be its own, because then that's when we might have to have the discussion of them taking away Anakin's importance, but that's more towards Shmi. But I mean, it's not everything has to connect in that certain fashion,
No.
that's just not how it goes. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a slave there. Malekith again. The Kyber crystal bleeding from Dagon and Jedi Survivor was way better. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. I still haven't freaking played that yet, but I've seen the little like cutscene for that entire thing. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's more of your animated style, which makes it, cool in that aspect. But live action, like holy shit, dude. You could tell those digital effects artists were probably having a really good time showing the crack. And she also, if you really look at it right here, like on her hand, it kind of shows like a kind of like a lightning look. And it shows just that hatred going right into the crystal and technically like really cracking it and just making it just bleed. Like that was awesome. That was probably one of my favorite parts. That seeing Plagueis, of course, Yoda at the end was cool, but I think another dope ass scene was when Chimere and Soul had reverse switched their lightsabers hitting each other, and it just the lightsaber chart. Oh my god, man! Like, come on, dude! Like that shit. Like, how do you hate this? How do people hate on this stuff?
I mean, to be fair, it's a scene we haven't really talked about yet in terms of the whole, Soul finally admitting what he did all those years ago. Osha overhearing him and tapping into the dark side here, and this is not only the first time we've seen a live action bleeding of a lightsaber crystal. We've seen it in comics, we've seen it in games now. This is the first proper live action one that we've seen. This is the first time on screen we've ever seen a Jedi force choked to death. That's
Dude.
never happened before either. Again, I've already mentioned it, but in the fact that the acting of that part from Amanda Stenberg maybe wasn't for me fantastic. I wanted to see more anger, more emotion from it. But the fact that that whole sequence of whilst she's force choking him, she's pouring the anger into the lightsaber crystal, and it's sparking and then turning red as if just being flooded with blood. And then as she ignites the lightsaber crystal when Khmer taps her on the shoulder after she's killed Soul, and it sort of lights up blue and then sort of crackles into red from the crystal as well. That whole sequence was pretty dope. What about you? What did you think about that?
Yeah, dude, that shit had me like, holy shit, but another thing too, right in that scene is seeing, Soul choking and that tear just floods from his face. Like I felt like that had to happen, he felt very, very responsible for the death of her mother. Whether he was, I see a lot of people saying he was just defending himself, what was going on. But at the same time, I don't know what you think, but I don't think it was really in self-defense. I think he was just kind of like, holy shit, like, what is she doing? Fuck that. And then, stabs her. And that's what it was. And even you can tell Mother Anaseo wasn't meaning any harm because she was so surprised by, being stabbed in the chest. And it's just one of those things. And it's like, you can't, like, he felt all of that guilt. And I think that's kind of, why he shed the tear, and the one that he ultimately tried to save and put everything on the line for, is the one that ultimately ends his life. He tried to, that's something even in, and in a lot of entertainment and movies is when you put yourself on the line, you're ultimately killing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because of the guilt he felt, and then he built up this whole sort of story around him about what had happened on that night, and that he was trying to stick to it. And whilst he knew it wasn't really what had happened, he'd just been telling this lie for so long that he had started to believe it and defended the lie every given point he could.
Right.
And then when he finally, I think, sort of sunk into the guilt and had just admitted, you see almost the relief he feels by admitting that, like, yes, I killed your mother. And then when he's being force choked, and he just looks at Osha in the face, and he's just like, it's okay, do what you want to do with this release of anger. And kills him in the end. So yeah, damn, first Jedi to be killed on screen via force choking. So
man, fucking nuts. Just when you thought a Jedi could not be force choked to death, it happens. Maybe he needed maybe this is why Cad Bane, decided to make his ventilation tubes, and especially with his
that is
into
literally
his throat.
supposed to be it.
Yeah.
So if he's ever force choked, he can still breathe.
Right.
That is literally the reason behind them. So
so even though Cad Bane is definitely nothing with the Acolyte that we know of, I mean, who knows? Is there a backstory on why he ended up getting that? If not, maybe this story could be told down the line, and this is, kind of something, because I know Cad Bane has had his run-ins with Jedi, of course. I mean, we see it in the Clone Wars, multiple times.
Yeah.
But maybe that, just hearing the story, or I mean, he's been force choked as well, so it's all precaution.
Yeah, I think it's just in terms of a general precaution, maybe not specifically for the Jedi force choking him, because the Jedi aren't really supposed to be doing that, are they? So
Right.
I think it's just a general, like, should he get strangled or have anything put around his neck, he still has a way to survive being through that, assuming his throat isn't crushed.
Yeah, that would be that's a good little piece of technology there. And the space boots.
Yeah, they were cool.
Tack again. I was able to differentiate between the twins. Nice. Yeah, you can definitely tell them apart physically. I mean, it is just the same actor or actress playing the twins, but yeah, you can definitely tell them apart. The hair in the last episode kind of threw me off. I didn't realize that they both kind of had their reddish twisties. Like, it was kind of, I thought Osha was more of the brown.
I think it was interesting that, a couple of episodes before, what was it, the end of episode 5 or whatever, when May left Osha and went with Soul, that she obviously swapped their outfits. And
Yeah.
so these are the outfits they both end up wearing for the whole remainder of the show. But this is then also the sides that they picked at the end as well. So,
Yeah.
Osha picks to go with Camille in the dark side. And so she's wearing May's outfits that she was wearing at the beginning. And May ends up wearing Osha's outfit and leaves with the Jedi. So it's sort of a nice twist that you don't see coming in terms of the outfits they wear end up being which side they're on.
Yeah. I think that's a good throw in too, because obviously, May has the witch coven symbol on her forehead, and Osha has like the group that she was with before or between the events of the Acolyte and after she left the Jedi. She kind of had that like symbol tattoo. So it's like, and Chimera, you could tell he knew that this was Osha. I remember a lot of people thinking online that it was, not the same. Like, how does he not see that? And it's like, well, he obviously saw that. Another thing too, I'm not gonna say no names. This shit's crazy, but on Instagram, there's someone who is saying that how does Yoda not sense all this? And it's like, bro, how did he not? Why is it new? He didn't sense what was going on with Palpatine. Palpatine was sitting there this entire time under everyone's nose with no idea. And plus, how are they going to know everything?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, there's going to be pockets of activity within the dark side of the Force across the galaxy. You don't necessarily need to be a dark side user of the Force for there to be dark side activity, because we all know that evil spawns in many different places, in many different ways. So for them to be pinpointing specific different things. I mean, Yoda senses the darkness in Anakin because I think he's the chosen one, and therefore he can sense Anakin's pain from across the galaxy in a way. In episode 2, after he loses his mum, he obviously senses the downfall of the Jedi, Order 66. But these are majorly big events for people that are close to Yoda as well. It's not like, how close was Yoda to a random set of Jedi that get killed on a planet that we barely even got names for.
Right.
So that's more of a case of, I think that's happening because Yoda's connected deeply to those particular people and those events and stuff like that. So we can't necessarily call it Yoda for not feeling it in the Force. Plus, as we know from the lore as well, the Jedi Temple was built on top of a dark side well. So therefore, the dark side slowly corrupted the Jedi's ability to use the Force over time anyway. This is revealed in episode 3. Not necessarily that it's on top of the dark side well, but their ability to use the Force is diminished, as Mace Windu says.
Yeah, and it's all right there. I do love that, though. It's just so cool that, it's kind of more of like a territorial thing, to build on top of it. But it's something that adds even more weight.
It's more of the Jedi's arrogance, the fact that they built their Jedi Temple on Coruscant on top of a dark side well, on top of a Sith shrine as well. So the fact that you're arrogant to do that on top of there and think that there's going to be no long-term consequences is just more arrogance of the Jedi, I think.
Yes. No, it's nothing. We'll be fine. We'll build on top of this, and we're Jedi. We'll never go extinct.
It's like me sharing a prison cell with one of the worst mass murderers of all time and thinking that over long term I'm not going to have any ill effects of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like come on, it's all in the game there. Tack again. I didn't like Sidious coming back after Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I wasn't too big on it either, but I can't change it. I just kind of grew to be like, well, Palpatine was a bad man. He if anyone was to come back, it would be Palpatine. So it kind of didn't really shock me too much.
And I still think the opening of The Rise of Skywalker is one of my favorites. From Kylo Ren getting the Sith Wayfinder on Mustafar to arriving on Exegol and coming face to face with Sidious. A lot of people found it cheesy when Palpatine does the dark side of the Force as a pathway to many abilities line. And I was just, but I'm that guy that was at the cinema doing the old doing the Leonardo DiCaprio sort of meme, like he just said that.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, dude, it's so good. That was something I saw in the theaters too, where I was just like, oh shit. Because I did read a spoiler on Reddit the night before I went, and it said Palpatine returns and is Rey's grandfather. So I was like, what? No way, dude. Like, how does that work? But even even in the title crawl, it says the dead speak, like Emperor Palpatine. So it's like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, so yeah, I mean that's cool shit. But I mean that's okay if you don't like it. You're one of many. That's fine. That's fine. Emil, hey, how you doing? Did you like the effects or how lightsabers looked in the series? In my opinion, it was a disaster compared to the sequels. Yeah, I thought lightsabers looked pretty well. I thought they had the Kenobi effect where it was like the darker blue and the darker red. They kind of looked like baselit, like Hasbro lightsabers, where it's not fully emitting through the entire, bulb of the blade. But I mean, at the same time, they add the digital effects. The only thing I think was kind of off with the lightsabers were just the color. It seemed just a little bit too dark. But other than that, I mean, I thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty good.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's not the same as old school lightsabers where they would add all the light completely digitally afterwards.
Yeah,
Nowadays they do have, the lightsabers that are lit up as they're actually fighting and doing the scene. So and they do add a bit of color afterwards in post as well. So it has changed a bit in terms of the light, but I had no problem with it, to be fair. In terms of how the lightsabers look, the hilts themselves did look chunkier. A lot of them sort of looked thicker in
yeah,
this series compared to maybe later on when we see a bit more maybe sleek, thinner sort of hilts.
right.
But again, I didn't really have too much of an issue with the lightsabers. I think the only thing is there were none that were really maybe completely distinctive. We see a lot of distinctive ones, I think, in the prequels, and maybe because they were trying to be a bit flashier compared to
Yeah,
the original trilogy, so they gave them sort of maybe some different looking blades, and these ones all looked a bit more simple, a bit more average looking. There's nothing wrong with that, to be fair. Not every lightsaber needs to be flashy, to be fair.
right. Yeah,
Just for the sake of sales or for selling toys. But yeah, I personally had no issue with how they looked. I thought they were absolutely fine.
yeah, yeah, and that's fine too. If it's I think they're a lot different from the sequels. I think the sequels did, obviously Kylo Ren's lightsaber is game changing.
Mm.
Really cool to see. But I mean, yeah, I think we get better choreography in the Acolyte compared to the sequels. There wasn't too many
Mm.
lightsaber duels, but the ones we do see, I mean, they're cool. But yeah,
What's your favorite lightsaber of all time?
Obi-Wan Revenge of the Sith.
For
The
some reason, I
hilt,
knew it was going to come from Revenge of the Sith.
the hilt is beautiful, but I do like the weathered version where obviously spending all that time in the sand on Tatooine, it's probably really hot down there. But the Kenobi series lightsaber, it's the same one from Revenge of the Sith, but I love how that one looks. The weathered look. Color though, I'd probably go with yellow. If I could have Obi-Wan's hilt, yellow lightsaber, that's my dream saber right there. What about you?
Well, normally I would go with Anakin simply because I just love Anakin, and who doesn't love the Youngling Slayer 9000? And in color it would be red normally, but if I may answer this with a visual effect in terms of what my favorite one is.
Oh yeah, the little dark saber right there.
Not that I'm trying to show off or anything, but
Yeah, show that thing off.
I love this bad boy.
Little tip drag. Hell yeah.
But yeah, so I think overall that has to be my favorite.
Yeah, the dark saber, man, that's something of its own to where it's just it's so different.
Just a bit of a classic.
Oh yeah. Vader right there. Yeah. I mean, you can't I love the way Vader kind of took his episode in Attack of the Clones and like made it dark side pretty much. That's kind of the comparison of the physical features of the lightsaber. I do love that. But yeah, the Youngling Slayer 9000, you can't ever put that down.
I do have that back there as well, to be fair. I resisted the temptation to bring that one out. But I can't remember if we talked about this when we reviewed Revenge of the Sith together, but there's always the key moment when officially in Star Wars they switch over from Anakin to Vader. And that's during Order 66 when he goes into the the High Council chamber, and he finds the younglings in there. And when he lights up his lightsaber and scares the little kid before obviously killing them all off screen, the noise they use when Anakin ignites his saber is the noise that they used for Vader's saber in the original series, in the original trilogy. So that's the moment they officially switch over from being Anakin to Vader, is the sound of the lightsaber. And it's such a niche thing that most people probably don't even know. But it's always something I look at it and go, okay, now Vader's here.
Yeah, I do actually remember talking about that during that episode 3 chat, because I was like, holy shit, no way. Like that's such a nice little Easter egg. But also too, like I remember you were telling me too with Revenge of the Sith was that like Anakin had sort of felt some sort of way before he went into the council room.
Yeah. So
and then when the child
yeah, it comes from the novel, to be fair, because the novel expands a lot more on all the emotions and thoughts a lot of the characters were feeling throughout the film. But when he goes into the chamber and he sees the kids in there, he has second thoughts about whether this is the right thing to do, whether he should be doing this or not. And he's on the verge of turning back and not going through with this all. Then that little shit calls him Master Skywalker, and he's instantly reminded that the Jedi Council didn't make him a master, that they haven't done, and that all the anger and hatred came flooding back, and that's when he ignited his lightsaber and takes them all out. So if that little kid hadn't called him Master Skywalker, there's a very good chance he would have turned back.
Man, shit, god damn it, kid, keep your mouth shut. It's always kids talking. But yeah, dude, that's crazy. Could you actually, thinking back on that, could you imagine like if Anakin had bled like his saber, because he was using blue that whole time, and I don't know, I don't know if that's something that could even be controversial even now after seeing, someone like Osha pouring all of her hatred into Soul Saber, turning that lightsaber into a red one. I mean, obviously it didn't happen, but like, what do you think that would take?
I hadn't thought about that, to be fair, and that does kind of throw in one of those little continuity issues now, I think, because all the anger that Anakin experienced going through his turn, when he's essentially sent off to Mustafar and he kills off all the Separatist leaders, and we see him stood on the balcony finally with the Sith eyes. That's the moment when Palpatine was like, "Then will you be strong enough on the dark side, and we can save Padme?" And that's when Anakin, and the hate he feels battling Kenobi. If everything that we've seen from Dagon in Jedi Survivor to Osha here, bleeding lightsabers red, easily Anakin should have been able to turn his lightsaber red in that moment. He does it in the Darth Vader comic post episode 3. Palpatine basically teaches him how to do it, and they make it like a big event where he has to sit down and meditate and pour all of his anger, his hate, and his mistrust of everything that's happened into this crystal and bleed it red. So it seems like they've made it slightly easier to do that, and it does. I suppose, I hadn't really thought about the fact that maybe it does cause a small continuity issue in the fact that Anakin's lightsaber should have turned, but does it speak to the fact that Anakin was still technically the chosen one who was due to bring balance to the Force? So it took a lot more for Anakin to, even though he was fueled and powered by his anger and hate as a Sith, it still speaks to the fact that there was good in him and that he wasn't fully always dedicated to that life, even if he sort of slightly gave up at times. So I could use that as an excuse to why he didn't turn his lightsaber red, and that the fact it took a lot more for him because he's naturally balanced in a way in the Force, even if his temperament and attitude wasn't always aligned. So, but yeah, you could argue either way in the fact that given what we see now in turning lightsaber crystals red and bleeding them, that Anakin should have been able to do that fairly easily in episode 3 and didn't. But at the same point, I'd like to think, being the natural chosen one, it kept him in balance in a way in his own mind that it took more than that for him to bleed a crystal.
Right. Yeah, that's a good look, because that was an idea I thought I got just talking about it. But then again, him not completely, letting in. Because I mean, I feel like it can't just happen right away. Because I feel like even with Osha's defense, she's always had that, the dark in her. It's just she wasn't able to really show it just because obviously her Jedi training, kept her intact. But at the same time, that's why she had to go, because they sensed it, My dad here, Michael Clark, shirts are dope. Good live, y'all. Keep doing it big, my dudes. Hell yeah. Thanks, Pops, for joining the live. Gotta rep the shirts, of course. They actually came in just right before the episode. Andy's came in yesterday, so hell yeah.
Good timing.
Attack again. What? Darth Maul return was everything. See, and it was, but like I said, I just didn't like it for the time. It's I love it now. It's awesome. I love Maul. So
yeah.
Malekith again. I'm more excited for the animated stuff. I feel like it's more consistent. Yeah, I agree. I'm ready as well, but I mean, I'm a live action guy. I love seeing everything happen with acting as well. With actors and actresses, live action. But yeah, I can never knock down animation. Clone Wars definitely got me more in towards the animation.
Well, you're still clinging on to the fact of the next animated show that they kind of rumored is coming out is still going to be your boy Quinlan Voss, isn't it? So every new animated show that's ever going to come out for Star Wars, Brandon's going to be like, "It's Quinlan Voss, isn't it? It's Quinlan Voss, yeah."
Yes, and I don't know, dude. If that's what it takes, Disney. If you need me to, get some dreads, make me some dreads. I'll take the Kifar lying across my face. I'll take it all. Just come on, let's get something going. Everything's pointing towards it. Make it happen. I should be a mad Star Wars fan. I should be the mad one. No Quinlan. I will say I feel like that is a lot of things, especially with the Bad Batch. I was so disappointed at the end, and I'm like, come on, have Omega go with Quinlan and Asajj. Like, what was the whole point of that? But to go into the Resistance, I mean, it only made sense. So I don't know. We'll see. Quinlan will be in the next show. I'm almost certain of it. Just like I said, the last two shows.
Yeah, just like you were certain it was the Bad Batch. Yeah.
Attack again, and I could look at Rosario Dawson all day. Yeah, there's a particular movie with her and Colin Farrell. You should go check it out. You'll love it. Attack loves art again. Lando Cat Hissian. Yep, that's my cat. I don't know what he was doing. He just came in and had to say hi, I guess.
And that's coming from Brando Calrissian.
Yeah, Brando Calrissian. Attack loves art. The stranger helmet has no eyes. How could you see? Oh, they actually widened it a little bit.
That's obviously not the what they say though, is it? In the fact that it's completely closed off, so to speak. So it's just him and the Force. You can't technically see through it. He's just having to completely entrust himself to the Force because it blocks all outside. I was going to say interference. That's not right. I don't even know the word I'm trying to use. Basically, it blocks all your senses from the outside, so sight, sound, that sort of stuff. And he just has to use his senses in the Force to know when someone's near him, when they're attacking, how they're moving. So it kind of like definitely attunes you better to your inner thoughts and your feelings through the Force than just trusting. As we've heard several times throughout Star Wars lore, even Kenobi says that your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. You trust in your feelings through the Force. So,
yeah,
sensory deprivation helmet, wasn't it? That's what he called it.
Yes, and that's a good. See, right at the beginning when I read that, I was like, "Oh, we're still talking about the Hasbro helmet." Just kind of catching up with the comments, but never.
Oh,
mind.
Maybe he was talking about that. Actually, maybe he was. Fuck yeah. So, yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe the helmet they wind it a bit so you can actually use it on that sense. Yeah. Fair. I wasn't thinking about that.
But yeah, that's the thing. That is one of the better points I think with Kymir's characters. He's really letting the Force dictate, what he is able to do as a especially when he's combative. The best choreography we get is from that. From him fighting. That's it's crazy how he did that. I was a little disappointed that he didn't have his gauntlet, his little wrist gauntlet on when he's fighting Soul.
Yeah, why didn't he at different points when Soul's pushing the lightsaber closer to him and just headbutt it? You've got the Cortosis helmet on. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking too. Maybe the directors are kind of scared to use that again. He's just OP with that, But at the same time, I mean, shit, you got to use it. That's why it's there.
Because I was expecting Soul to die in this episode, but I thought there would be a moment where Kumir essentially headbutts the lightsaber, shorts it out, and then just stabs him. So
yeah, that was. Did you notice too when Soul did that final blow, and it kind of looked like Obi-Wan versus Maul in Rebels, or that final blow, and they were just like stuck for a second. I was waiting for like Soul's body to just like slide in half, or Chimera to just like fall down, but it was just his lightsaber hilt.
I mean, we've got some good look at some crystals in this episode as well, because top of Khmer's lightsaber gets chopped open, and they give you a good shot of his crystal. Yeah, the good shot of Soul's crystal as well. So yeah, some good episode for kyber crystals.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. That was one of my favorite things. I had to post Plagueis right away on Instagram, but as soon, and I wanted to zoom in on his face that way, if anyone had got on and like not seen it yet, they're kind of like, what the fuck is that? But man, that kyber crystal, I had to show that, man. I was like, man, that shit, I love it. Love it. Pop the Bounty Collector. What's up, man? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Tackle of Zart. Did the mother die? Those witches are durable a lot. I mean, yeah, I think they all died, just because I still thought Mother Coral was out there. But when I rewatched the episode, all of the witches fell, and I think that Coral projected all of the witches as one to pour into Kelnaka, then taking over his body with magic and them literally physically themselves. But other than that, yeah, I think they're dead. They're just kind of there and then gone at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too much more else than that. But yeah, I think they're all done. And attack again. Soul talked too much anyway. Like Magneto, Shut Up, Xavier, and X-Men 97. Dude, I haven't watched X-Men 97. I've actually never watched X-Men. I was never too into it when I was younger, but I've seen everyone liked this series. I mean, I was born in 97, so I mean that should be my reason to go watch it, but
you young bastard.
But yeah, anything 97, it just calls to me. So I'm just like, maybe I'll check it out one day. But did you watch X-Men?
You've got the original 5 series from the actual 90s on Disney Plus anyway, and X-Men 97 follows on from there. So it's not like you would have to jump in straight to X-Men 97. You can watch the originals first, get a feel for the story and the characters, and then go on to the new one. So, but no, I haven't actually watched it yet. It's on a long list of things I've got to get around to watching. Because of this time and my baby now arriving next week, I've been kind of caught up with other bits and pieces. So once I've got a bit of time off with the new baby and stuff like that, I'm sure I'm going to have plenty of time to sit around and catch up on the many shows that are on my watch list at the moment, including X-Men 97.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so hopefully I can maybe get into it at some point. It's kind of a dark road, because when I like a series, I'm like, okay, where's the Funkos for him? So kind of always
plenty of X-Men Funkos out there.
Yeah, I see them at Target every time I go. Some of them look really cool. Ricky again. The Acolyte was perfect, but the Acolyte was perfect, but what show is perfect? Wasn't perfect, probably. I like Chimera, and I wish the show focused on him versus the twins. Yeah, I agree. I think, especially, with what we've been saying about the twins, I mean, they're their own thing. But man, if this was really centered around Chimera, we see him at the end of episode 1, like we mentioned. We see him in episode 2 as the previous Hutt smuggling scoundrel that he was, which I thought that was cool too, to know that he worked for the Hutts, and knowing that the Hutts were still running shit back then in the Outer Rim. That's really cool. I love that. But then kind of going into episode 4 as this character that just is this menacing, floating, holy shit, and going into episode 5 right off the rip, he's just slaying Jedi. Like, that is some of the best things that we've seen since Order 66 in these previous years with Disney Star Wars. I'm loving it. But God, could you imagine if it was just all centered around Chimera? Maybe season 2.
I really wish it was, to be fair. I think it would have been, I'm not saying this was necessarily bad, but I think it could have been 10 times the show if it had focused on maybe him instead. Because he was so intrigued. I think maybe that's what has added to the mystery and the love of his character, was that maybe too much of him would have been too much. The constant talking, if you had like how he was in episode 6 talking with Osha. If you'd have had 8 episodes of that, maybe it would become a bit tiring and would have been a bit over the top. So maybe in this situation, the reason he's so good is because less is more. He starts off as like just this shop working smuggler or whatever, that seems to be sort of like a hand to the master or something like that. And I just love that moment in episode 4 when he's been strung upside down by May. He's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" She's like, "Osha's alive. This changes everything." And you just see the moment where it all changes for him, because he just turns into that calming but deadly voice that he has for the rest of it, where he just goes, he'll kill you.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's the moment he switches up. And you're like, damn.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, also as well, I know it's not his natural thing, his voice necessarily, but the voice he has with the stranger helmet on is beautiful.
Oh, it's so menacing.
Yeah.
That's
adds
the
to it,
best
doesn't
way.
it? So.
I know, and I know a lot of people thought it was funny when Osha put the helmet on, but even just her breathing and hearing just a slight hinge in just the voice effects, and it's like, yes, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Star Wars Luke UK. Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining. I thought the show was supposed to be about the Sith. I have no idea what it was supposed to be about. Yeah, I feel like that is one of the things too that kind of gives it that letdown, is just the marketing was more so, and also Leslie Headland saying that this is going to be primarily focused on the Sith. At the same time, like we were saying earlier, the story's not over yet. So maybe this is just kind of the precursor going into season 2. Sometimes a story kind of starts slow before it starts ramping up. So maybe this was just kind of the test run, maybe, with the story. Got to see where it all stems from. And I mean, obviously you can't throw Plagueis in there without going deep into it. So that's why I think there's high hope that season 2 will definitely be centered around the Sith. I mean, because what Jedi do we have to follow? Vernestra and Yoda. Well, I mean, we know Vernestra is a shady POS. Like, we know that. So, I mean, maybe this is already showing a POV of the Sith. Now that I think about it, we're seeing how corrupt the Jedi are, how shitty they can be. How many things have happened where they just sweep it under the rug. See it in Clone Wars with Yoda. Yoda knows about some things. So I don't know. It's I think the next season, if it gets greenlit, it'll be a good representation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did kind of change it a bit. So it was, they ended up marketing it closer to the show as more of a murder mystery than a Sith show. Which, yeah, I spoke about earlier in this recording. I was disappointed with that because I want more Sith. So, but yeah, so it became but like you say, if the story's not complete, sometimes you've got to let the whole thing play out before you can then say this was a show about the Sith, or this was a show about a murder mystery or something like that. So yeah, season 2, hopefully it then switches it up and becomes more Sith involved, and then the overall arc of the entire show itself becomes more Sith centric.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we can hope and pray for. Hoping it happens. Attack again. That Darksaber is awesome. Hell yeah, dude. I know. I need to. I don't have any lightsabers, man. I need to get one. I'm thinking about getting on Neo Saber or in Sabers and getting a Neo Pixel, because like their cheapest one is like 210, I think, with a full Neo Pixel blade. So I want to test those out.
Yeah, all mine were are just I've got Vader Saber and the Darksaber. They're the Black Series ones. And then the Anakin one I've got from episode 3 is actually the old school Master Replica one from 2005.
Ooh, okay.
So that is an old school, proper original Master Replica's lightsaber before they got taken over by Hasbro and Black Series.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen. Do some of those come with like plates that say like this is the number?
Some of them did, yeah, not all of them. Like I had my own custom made stand. So the Anakin one, because in my old recording room, I had them all mounted on the wall. But the Anakin one, originally when I first bought it, I had a custom stand made for it that said like Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker.
Nice.
On sort of like clear plastic, and for it to just sit on. So
nice. Hell yeah. I know. I need to get my game up, dude. I'm so jealous when people talk about their lightsaber collections, because it's like, I need one. That's like, I feel like that's what I'm missing in here. Attack again. Only thing, the X-Men cartoon from the 90s doesn't hold up animation wise. The comics The comics back then though were the shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Like I
was
said,
30 years ago. Cut my break. That's
yeah, I haven't checked out X-Men, so
yeah,
maybe
I'm old
one day.
enough that that's what I grew up with. So
Attack again. What was happening when OSHA put on the helmet? Was it killing her? Yeah, that was another thing. Maybe we can end on that.
yeah.
Is what did you think? Because like when Chimere's eyes turned black, I was like,
Yeah, that was
wait,
weird. It was like it was bouncing back and forth between two different sides of Khmer because it had this bit where it was focusing on him with black eyes, then this bit where it kind of shifted to him when he was normal, and it was almost like he was being restrained from being able to pull the helmet off of her because it looked like he was battling it. It was almost like I thought when she first started like having a fit or choking or whatever she was doing, I thought that that's why we were going to get like the Sith Lord that we'd been promised appear because he was like force choking her and was going to
yeah,
appear and be like, so you've got a new apprentice or something, what are you trying to do? But it seemed like because it was like supposed to be a sensory deprivation type helmet where it's just you and the force and nothing else, that it basically triggered her to go into some sort of vision where she saw what she thought was May killing Soul, but turned out to be her. And it was just really disturbing for her because we've seen before in all of Star Wars when people have visions of what's going to happen in the future, it can really exasperate them and make them almost into a panicked state. So I figured that if this is what she's seeing, she's triggered a force vision of the future, and it's just causing her to panic. And she's either I thought maybe if there was an off-screen Sith Lord doing something to her, they were stopping Khmer from reaching for the helmet to pull it off. But maybe she was just projecting so much force power in that moment from the vision that it was stopping Khmer from almost like a force barrier from
right.
reaching to get the helmet, and he had to fight through it. And he had to his eyes going black seemed to be maybe a manipulation effect of OSHA as part of the Witch's Coven, because that's the only time we've seen the eyes go black. Is that she was delving into part of her heritage or her power as a witch and also the dark side to have this vision, and it was causing a force barrier or a force effect on Khmer at the same time, which is why he then struggled to take it off. But yeah, that was my interpretation of it anyway.
Yeah, that was a good one because I was like, is Chimere a witch? Like, is he a part of this? But then I was like, no, because why would he go through it? Because like Torben went through it. And then I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So then I'm thinking, okay, OSHA, and even though she didn't completely go through with the ascension, May was the one that ended up getting, the marking and all of that. And right before it was her turn, the Jedi show up. So maybe just her coming from, dark magic and the witches, that was just, she was basically going back to her roots and was just letting out everything. So it's kind of like a Sith seeing stone, the helmet could be looked at it that way, just kind of like Grogu when he was put on the seeing stone. Like, you're like, okay, kid, do something, and then he turns around, worried about something else, and then oh shit, it's working. I feel like that's kind of how it was because the Vader-esque breathing with the helmet on, just a shout. That's really cool. But yeah, obviously that was what was going on. And I thought it was cool that Chimere was kind of being a victim of OSHA's hatred and what she was actually seeing through the Force. So, the Force does a crazy amount of things, and we see that with most Star Wars characters. So that's cool that we get to see it in others as well in a different time. So, but yeah, man, almost 2 hours on the live stream. This has been a really good conversation. The Acolyte, what would you rate it out of 10? 0 being, absolutely shit, terrible, Madam Web. Or from a scale from Madam Web to 10, perfect. What would you rate the Acolyte as a season 1?
Yeah, it's an overall thing. Definitely issues, but definitely some good points. It's given us one of the best episodes of Star Wars in a long, long time. Given us some interesting characters, given us some things that I thought we would never see in terms of a lot of Jedi death in one episode, and done in a cool way, so to speak, if you don't mind describing being killed as cool. But yeah, I think overall a solid, if unspectacular, overall series. a 6 out of 10, I think, for me is probably just about fair enough, because some of the writing, as we talked about, and some of the acting was maybe not perfect, but the cinematography, the overall look of the show, and individual characters shone well above what you would probably have hoped to have seen. I mean, we all go in hoping it's always going to be a 10 out of 10, but that's never going to happen. We've got to be realistic about it. And Kamir definitely being the star of the show. For me, episode 5 being the standout of it's a singular episode of Star Wars above almost everything, probably even above the World Between Worlds episode of Ahsoka, because the nostalgia we all have for Anakin and Ahsoka. So, rating an episode above that, I think it has to have been a good episode. So definitely the highlight of the entire series for me. But yeah, I think overall a solid, if a unspectacular start. 6 out of 10 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of agreements through this entire season and all throughout Star Wars. That's like I said before, that's why I like talking with you, especially because I learn new shit. You're not a dickhead in the fandom and you like shit. So if you're one of the 3 things, it's pretty easy to get along with people. So but yeah, man, the twins, they throw me off, like I've said. Chimere, dope as hell. Love everything that he had to offer. Tack right here, gonna watch the episode again, give it a 10 out of 10. Yes, it was a good episode. I think there are some things where it's like I still have questions, but yeah, I mean, last night's episode was good, and I definitely think it kind of gives the not more so of a cherry on top, but some extra Cool Whip on the Sunday. I'm gonna go with a solid 7 out of 10. I don't think the Acolyte was great. I don't think it was bad, but I think it was good. Very, very solid project. And if we do get a season 2, heads and directors and all of that in here can definitely bounce off what they see on the internet. Reviews. I don't think you can take the review bombing to heart too much, just because that's just some dumb shit. But at the same time, yeah, I think it was a solid project, and I think that I feel like it can only go up. I don't think it can get worse. We got characters that are coming in, like Plagueis for one. Maybe we get to see Vernestra and Yoda talking. And then obviously we get to understand what the hell Soul was talking about with the twins and who they are as one. Maybe someone's projecting themselves into these characters. Who knows?
Well, all will be revealed.
Yep, it'll all be revealed one day, and but that's what we're here for. Andy, the Galactic Core podcast, and Clan Brandalorian talking about what happened with the Acolyte. So thank you everyone showing up today. But Andy, if you want to go ahead and tell everyone what's going on with you and your channel, the floor is yours, my man.
Thank you, brother. I mean, as always, thank you so much for having me on. It's been amazing to chat about this series tonight, especially since, because I've not been well the last few weeks, I've not been able to do a review of 6 and 7, so getting to chat about it overall. If you want to see my show, the Galactic Core podcast, you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube as well. You can catch me on Twitch. I'm planning to get back to trying to do some streaming. I say this every week, I swear. I'm going to get back to streaming, but you can find me on Twitch, the Galactic Core podcast. But give us a like, give us a subscribe. My episode of the Acolyte review in the series will be coming out start of next week. I've got special guests, the Bitches of Dathomir podcast coming on. They are fantastic. They review a lot of High Republic era stuff as well, so they are perfect to have on for this to talk about it. But thank you so much for joining me and getting to listen to what I love about Star Wars in this show. So Brandon, thank you, brother, for having me on.
Of course, man. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, like always, you guys will see us once again in the near future. But like Andy said, there's going to be just a little break. And I mean, other than that, we're going to be right here as always. So make sure you guys go follow him at the Galactic Core podcast on every social media. And
Instagram. I mean, I don't even use Facebook, but I'm still on there for some reason. But Instagram and TikTok, just like yourself, and YouTube. Don't know whether it's too early to reveal this, but I am taking a break through pretty much all of August whilst my baby arrives next week. For those who obviously follow Clan Brandalorian's show, he has very graciously agreed to guest host an episode for me, so that we're going to put out during the time I'm off, just so my show doesn't go completely silent for 5 or 6 weeks. So I appreciate you that, brother.
Yes.
Just anyone who obviously listens to Clan Brandalorian, please tune into that episode and give him a support for stepping in and hosting an episode on my behalf. So I appreciate that as well, to be fair.
No problem. Absolutely. And yeah, also, guys, if to the 3 that are still in the chat, we have a entire prequels saga of ourselves talking about episode 1, The Phantom Menace, episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So if you're a prequel person, go ahead and go check that out. And as always, you do have the Clone Wars up as well. You also so yeah, make sure you guys, anything prequel era right there, make sure you go check out the Galactic Core podcast, YouTube, anywhere you can find podcasts. So yeah, don't miss out on that. Good chats, and it'll take a good
Mandalorian t-shirts.
Yeah, I'm about to relaunch these guys. So if you wrong way, yes. if you guys want to go grab some of these, go grab some. I'm thinking about relaunching these as well. And I mean, you can get them in all colors, different materials. We got tank tops, we got any size from small all the way to 4X.
All the way up to fatty level. Even fatty got one. It's all good.
So I mean, look, any size you get. So make sure you go check them out. I will re-upload those and put those in the description down below. But as always, make sure you go follow Andy at the Galactic Core podcast and myself if you're not following me already at Clan Brandalorian. Don't forget it. But as always, guys, thank you for watching. Clan Brandalorian, I'm out.